lives, not even ever understanding fully what the national animal is, not having the opportunity to experience it.
In the absence of funding from, at the moment, from the US government, it's going to be difficult for us to turn around quickly. But we are very resilient. We are like chimpanzees, so we will manage somehow.
The resilience of these sensitive, bright creatures is being tested, as the space carved out for them by their human friends is increasingly coming under threat. Yusra al-Bagher, Sky News, Freetown.
OK, let's take a look at the weather across the UK for you now.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
It's looking unsettled for the next week or so with widespread showers or more prolonged rain, but the south looks drier mid-month. East Anglia and the southeast will see rain this afternoon, but the rest of southern Britain looks mainly fine, bar the odd shower. Elsewhere, expect a mix of sunny spells and blustery showers, with the showers most widespread across Scotland. It'll be cooler and windier than yesterday, with coastal gales in the north. Later, more of the south will dry up, where the wind will ease too, but Kent will see rain into the evening. Showers will continue to affect the windy north overnight.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
You're watching Sky News today. Coming up next, it is Business Live with Darren McCaffrey, of course. Darren, never a dull moment. What have you got for us?
Yeah, never a dull moment indeed, Simon. Coming up in a couple of minutes, we're going to be talking about Thames Water, the mess they've got themselves into, what's going to happen to the UK's largest water company next. We're also talking to the chief executive of one of the world's largest banks, ING. We've got the markets and some breaking news from Mark Kleiman as well. That and even more on Business Live in just a couple of minutes here on Sky News. The top business stories live from the Sky newsroom. A private equity firm pulls out of a £4 billion Thames Water rescue deal in a fresh blow to Britain's largest water and sewage company. Donald Trump's trade war weighs down global economic growth to its weakest since the pandemic, according to the OECD. And the biggest names in banking convene for the FinTech Fest Money 2020. We're speaking to the chief executive of one of the world's largest banks. Very good morning. On this Tuesday, Business Live with me, Darren McCaffrey. We're going to begin with Thames Water's preferred bidder. That's a private equity firm known as KKR, which has pulled out of a rescue deal in a major setback for Britain's biggest water company. The move is a fresh blow for the beleaguered utility, which is in desperate need of new equity to fund a turnaround plan that will reduce its debts that currently stand at some 20 billion quid. Let's speak to Stuart Covell, who is the Deputy Chief Executive of Water UK. Stuart, very good morning to you. There's a report out this morning that says that the water industry is plagued by pollution, financial difficulties, mismanagement and infrastructure failures. They're not wrong, are they?
Well, there are clearly a whole bunch of problems. Today's report is an interim one from an independent commission that's been set up by government to look at the whole thing and to try and identify what needs to be done at the government level, with regulators and with industry as well. And you're right, it's found fault with all three categories. It's said that change is needed across all of those. And what we are calling for as an industry is changes that will accelerate improvements, because we've recently announced the largest ever investment in water infrastructure, but we want to see that delivered as fast as possible. And we're hoping the Commission, the interim report from which, as you say, was released today, will come up with final recommendations in a few weeks that make that happen.
Are you not as frustrated as everyone else is by the fact that these problems aren't new? They've been going on for years, if not decades in some cases. As you said, we've got an interim report out today. People want to see change now, don't they?
They do. The anger of the public and the dissatisfaction is really clear. And, I mean, that is something that is really strongly recognised by the water industry. It's not all bad. There have been some really important improvements over the last couple of decades, in particular on things like drinking water, the quality of beaches. But look, the water industry of England 2 years ago held its hands up and said, we're not doing enough, fast enough on the specific problem of sewage in rivers. We put forward a plan to deal with that. In December of last year, that got approval. And this year, we are seeing the money starting to flow into that, about £11 billion to stop those sewage spills into rivers. But it's not enough, which is why this commission is so important, to make sure that we don't find ourselves in this kind of position again.
So you accept, obviously, that the companies that you effectively kind of represent as an industry body are part of the problem. I mean, many people would say it's the way they run. It's privatisation, nationalisation needs to be the answer. We've tried the model of privatisation. Frankly, and let's be honest about this, in its current form, it has not worked.
Well, I'd say two things in response to that. Firstly, I represent nationalised companies in Scotland, in Northern Ireland. I also represent the not-for-profit company of Wales. And actually, when I speak to the leaders of those companies, it's really clear that the challenges are very similar right across the UK and in Europe as well. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to the Swiss, seeing some of their sewage works. They have some advanced technology, but actually they have far less understanding than we do in the UK of our sewage networks. They have a far bigger problem with sewage spills into rivers. So I think what Sir John has said in this interim report is there is no single simple solution. As attractive as it might be to think there's a silver bullet, whether nationalisation or something else, actually there are long-running problems, as you say, that have been going on for some time at both government and regulator level as well as with industry. Okay. And that's what we need to put right. Let's
talk about Thames specifically, if we can. KKR effectively pulling out today. What's your response to that? How bad is this for Thames Water? I mean, £4 billion is a lot of money.
Well, it's difficult for me to comment in too much detail. I don't work for Thames directly. All I can say is I think no company wants to be in this position. And actually, the fact that we're seeing this play out at the moment is, to some extent, an indictment on the overall system. No company should be put in a position of this level of debt and this many problems. I understand that Thames is talking to a number of regulators and finding alternative possible solutions. So this is breaking news. We'll see how that plays out in the coming days, but I understand there are alternatives now being explored.
And just very finally on this, has water become uninvestable, essentially? I mean, who would ever invest in our water industry, given the state of it, given the very fact that politicians, independent reviewers think it's a complete mess, even you as an industry body accept it's not being run well? Why would anyone want to invest in water in this country?
Well, there are some extremely well-run companies, as well as the problems that we've talked about. But you're right, investability is really important. We need something like £13 billion from shareholders over the next couple of years to support an unprecedented level of investment in the infrastructure, over £100 billion. The shareholders need to put that money in to finance the many projects that are now coming forward. So we can't be complacent about investability. And actually, I'm hoping that as well as cracking down on some of the complexity, on making sure that companies are doing the right things, Sir John's final report does also look at this question of investability, which is really important.
OK, really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Now, business leader. Oh, sorry, I should note before I move on to that story that there is going to be an urgent question in the House of Commons from 12:30 this afternoon. Steve Reid, the Environment Secretary, likely to answer that on behalf of the government. Victoria Atkins from the Conservatives will be posing the question about the financial system involving Thames Water, what the solutions may well be, what the government's response, I'm sure, is to this report as well. That's in the Commons at 12:30, and we'll bring you that live here on Sky News. Now, as I was saying, business leaders are meeting in Amsterdam today to kick off so-called Money 2020, a festival of fintechs, founders and fund managers. The great and good of banking and finance have convened to announce a slew of new products and services and share their thoughts on the global economic outlook. Well, delighted to say we can go live to Amsterdam now and join the Chief Executive of the ING Group. That is Steven van Rijswijk, who joins me now. Very good morning to you, Steven. First of all, there'll be a lot of people who've never heard of Money 2020. Just give us a sense of what you and others are doing there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Darren, and very glad to be here. What we are here to do here in Amsterdam is, of course, to present ourselves. ING is one of the most digital banks in Europe, so we come here to present what we are doing. Of course, we talk to many of our partners and companies that work in the payments and digital industry, because they are both our partners and our clients, so we do services for them and they do services for us. And last but not least, we also listen a little bit to what's the latest and the greatest in the payment arena, so that's why we're here.
And just in terms of the banking sector in Europe, its innovation, and as you say, how it operates today, what health do you feel that it is in?
Well, I think that currently the banking state in Europe is actually quite good. If you look at today's state compared to a number of years ago, we have seen better results, we have seen improvements in digitalization, we have seen more strategies that are focused on growth as well. And in Europe, of course, there is a lot to grow for. We, of course, have had the wake-up call from the US administration that we need to invest more in defense. We need to invest more in infrastructure, whether that is digital infrastructure or physical infrastructure or decarbonization infrastructure. Those are all things that we need to invest in. We, as a bank here in Europe, we are one of the largest European banks. We're active in approximately 25 markets here and approximately 40 all over the world. So we're here to grow in both of our wholesale bank as well as in our retail bank. And so we're very well poised for it.
Steven, how much though are the issues of geopolitics you mentioned there about defence and also the Trump administration's tariffs? I mean, we've heard from the OECD that there will be a drag on global growth in the next year or so. How difficult, how challenging is that for you, for ING and for the banking groups in Europe?
Yeah, look, tariffs are impeding, of course, on the global economy, so they create friction, and friction is never good for global trade. If you look at Europe specifically and the percentage from a macroeconomic perspective, the percentage of export they do to the US is relatively small, as a result of which the direct impact from hampering exports will be less than 0.5%. But of course, the biggest challenge will be the uncertainties in both the consumer space and in the industry space, there is the confidence going down. That may impede on companies making investments, and that may then further impede on GDP growth. The sectors that who will be mostly hit will be sectors who have a fragmented supply chain in different markets, because of course they will go past the door of import tariffs multiple times. If we look at ourselves here in Europe, of course, because we're globally, there are some companies that stand to benefit and some companies that stand to suffer. So we're well diversified. We're operating in a number of markets that have good growth. In Spain, for example, we're a big bank. We're big in Poland as well. So markets that have good growth. We see in Germany with the Merz administration that there is 500 billion available for further investments, and we're a top 3 bank in Germany as well. And when you look at mortgages, we are one of the biggest mortgage lenders in Europe. There is still a shortage in the mortgages. There is low unemployment rates. So in that sense, there's lowering or decreasing interest rates. So as a result of it, I think we are well there, and we're well in a position to benefit from the growth, or at least the investments that are being made in Europe.
And Stephen, you've demonstrated there, you are a big company with lots of different investments in lots of different places. Though hopefully you heard my interview just before I came to you. A big story in the UK today is Thames Water. ING actually have investments in the parent company of Thames Water. What would you like to see there? Are you concerned about the state of the water industry here in the UK?
Well, I mean, clearly, you've seen, of course, that we had a stake in Thames Water, and but we do not comment on the situation as such for individual clients. We never do that. In general, I think it is important that also for industries that have a clear utility function, that we look both within the private and public sector, how we can find solutions for that. That doesn't only go for the UK, for example, but it also goes for other markets as well. So that is important to follow, and I'm keen to see what will happen going forward.
But just very, very finally, you still think that, you know, the UK, its water industry is somewhere that is investable?
Look, I mean, there are many different segments of different markets, also in the water industry. Some are more publicly oriented, some more privately oriented. We do still think that there are elements of the UK water industry that are interesting to invest in, and we will continue to look at that in that fashion.
OK, we really appreciate your time live for us from Amsterdam this morning. That's Stephen van Rijswijk, who is the Chief Executive of ING Group, massive company here in Europe. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Darren.
OK, let's bring you up to date with some of the rest of the day's news now. And as we just saying, the global economy is heading into its weakest growth spell since the COVID-19 slump as President Trump's trade war slows leading economies, including the United States. That's according to new forecasts from the OECD. The organisation slashed its outlook for the majority of the G20 leading economies and predicted that global growth will be 2.9% in 2025-2026. Elon Musk is selling $5 billion in debt for its artificial intelligence startup, XAI Corp. It's the latest in a series of fundraising efforts across his business empire after the billionaire pivoted away from politics and returned to running his various companies. And the Chancellor and the Foreign Secretary are threatening to take Roman Abramovich to court to seize the proceeds of his Chelsea FC sale. The Russian oligarch, who is sanctioned by the UK government over his alleged links to Vladimir Putin, sold Chelsea for £2.5 billion to an American consortium back in 2022, just after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. You can get more on that, indeed, the rest of the money news on the Money blog. Just scan the QR code that's on your screen right now. Let's look at the markets this morning. Delighted to say we can speak to Lindsay James, investment strategist at Quilter Investors, just over here. Lindsay, let's start with the OECD, unsurprisingly suggesting economic growth globally and at home will be down given the uncertainty over those tariffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this was a report that is not going to surprise anybody. Really, the question on investors' lips has been, is the US going to go into recession this year? So the fact that they're really just forecasting lower growth rather than anything more severe at this point, I think investors will kind of be waiting to see actually how the ongoing negotiations with tariffs actually end up. And I think we're going to see that growth forecast from the OECD change again in the coming months as we see more certainty coming through on global trade.
And this comes, of course, as we saw inflation from the Eurozone this morning, and it's below target, I think 1.9%.
Yeah, that's right. Now, I think this is going to be seen as really good news, to be honest, because the ECB have got a meeting coming up on Thursday, really nails on the 8th rate cut, if it happens, 8th rate cut since last June. And what we're seeing in this inflation data is something that we might start seeing in the UK. So, yes, we know energy prices are down, but this is something that economists and investors really strip out. They want to see what's happening in the underlying data. And that's showing that in the service economy, wage demands are starting to become more muted. Now, wages have been a big driver of inflation really since the pandemic, as people are trying to offset the higher cost of living they've experienced. Now, I think that weaker outlook that the OECD is flagging is something that employers are also on top of, and they've been less receptive to those wage demands. So I think we might start to see some of that coming through in the UK as well. So good news for mortgage holders as we'll start to see interest rates potentially coming down further.
And let's talk about the US dollar, 3-year low yesterday. What's causing this pressure? Is it just those concerns that we talked about when it comes to US growth?
Well, that's one of them. Now, we saw really the data point that pushed the dollar weaker was for something that came out from the Institute of Supply Management. So they showed that the outlook for manufacturers was weakening. And we also saw that, and that's potentially no surprise, but I think the interesting thing in this data was that inventories have been falling very sharply. And I think that could suggest that those companies have then got to start to restock at higher prices, which they're then going to be pushing on to customers. So this is something we've been expecting to see for a while ahead of tariffs. Companies really stocked up heavily, trying to front run those tariffs. They're sitting on high levels of inventory, but those are now falling quite sharply. So we're getting closer to that end point. So really, this is quite an unusual move, because when you see weak signals for the US economy, you usually see people move into dollar assets and the dollar strengthening. But of course, we haven't got that driver anymore, partly because of the underlying backdrop in the US and concerns over debt.
And just very finally and briefly, Lindsay, if we can, talk about house builder MJ Gleeson issuing a profit warning effectively. What's caused that?
Yeah, well, this is a small company, but is it the canary in the coal mine? Well, I think it's interesting because they're saying that planning delays are one of the reasons why they see profits 15 to 20% below their previous expectations. Of course, planning is something that is very much high on the priority list of this government, but we're seeing companies say it's not getting better. In fact, it's getting worse. So although this is a small company, this could be something we start to see more widely across the house building sector. They're also worried about rising costs as well and stagnating selling prices. So something to watch for house builder investors.
Lindsay, always a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. Lindsay James there from Quilter Investors. Thank you. OK, we're just going to bring you some breaking news now on the future of British Steel, which is currently, of course, under the control of the UK government. We can bring in Mark Lyman. He's got the scoop for us this morning. Mark, what have you got?
That's right, Darren. This concerns British Steel, Britain's second biggest steel producer, which, of course, was taken under government control back in April. It's still technically owned by the Chinese company Jingye Group, which bought it out of a previous liquidation process back in 2020. Now, what I understand is that Jingye has hired the Magic Circle law firm Linklaters to explore potential options for recouping part of its outlay on British Steel in the 5 years since it took control of the company. The key question here is, what are the options that Linklaters will be advising Jingye on pursuing? Because there is clearly a dispute between the Chinese group and the UK government about whether the government owes Jingye any money for its shares. The government has indicated that it is still going to consider fully nationalising British Steel, but it hasn't done that yet. Now, in a statement provided to me this morning, Jingye confirmed that it has reappointed Linklaters, which was its original legal advisor on the deal back in 2020, whereas the government has said to me in a statement that it is working closely with Jingye and a range of third parties on options for the future. I suspect this is the start of a potential legal battle between Jingye and the UK government over the future of British Steel and the funding that the Chinese invested into the company.
OK, Mark, as always, great stuff. Thank you very much indeed. Mark Lyman there. OK, you're watching Business Live here on Sky News. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we'll be returning to Amsterdam and speaking to MasterCard about how the second largest card issuer in the world is changing the way we pay. That's up next.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war.
This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Very welcome back to Business Live. Now let's return to Amsterdam, where the biggest names in the world banking are getting together to meet and do deals. And one such deal is a new tie-up between MasterCard and Deutsche Bank, who are hoping to shake up the way merchants pay and are paid. Well, delighted to say we can speak to Valerie Noack, who is the Executive Vice President of Open Banking at MasterCard. Valerie, very good morning to you. Talk us through this tie-up.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Very happy to be with you today and excited to be at Money 2020 in Amsterdam, a lot of vibes. So yeah, we just announced our partnership with Deutsche Bank and MasterCard. to launch a new solutions for Deutsche Bank at the merchant solutions. That's kind of combining open banking capability from MasterCard, as well as the deep expertise in payment of Deutsche Bank and the big merchant base that they do have, to kind of enable the merchants with the pay-by-bank solutions across Europe, and that kind of allow consumers to really authorize payments from their bank account directly. So that's going to definitely be with real-time processing, immediate confirmation. So very exciting for both Deutsche Bank and MasterCard to launch this. We're currently onboarding already merchants, so it's live, and we're going to do even more over the coming weeks.
Yeah, it is fascinating, isn't it? Even though we've got the Eurozone, Valerie, I mean, as someone who used to live in Brussels, I'm very aware that one of the challenges, I'm sure, for you guys at MasterCard is there are lots of different banking regulations and rules in different European countries that can make these things quite challenging.
Yeah, definitely. But luckily, we do have the European Commission that's initiating, directive at the European level, and that's somehow harmonizing that. But the thing is that those regulations might sometimes be seen as a challenge, but it's also an opportunity because they really try to promote more competitions, more innovations by setting a framework, and it's up to us businesses to really take advantage of that, to shape it up through partnership with different partners.
And just very finally, Valerie, if you can, what about us consumers? Any kind of big changes there when it comes to payments for us?
I think for the consumers, what we have seen is a super high demand in terms of account-based payment, account to account. More and more, and especially with the young generations, they want to be able to pay online, in particular, from the bank account, which is relatively new. And so I think what we're working at MasterCard, obviously, and a lot of partners, is making sure that we can offer that account to account through open banking capabilities, and also making sure we're addressing the pain points around account to account payment, coming around protections, around dispute resolutions, right, when something goes wrong. So that's really what we're doing, and the consumers are really asking for more and more this type of solutions.
Valerie,
to
thank you.
Online.
From MasterCard, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. That's it from me. I'm back this afternoon. Goodbye.